Posture. It isn't something you think about on a day-to-day basis. Probably the last time you were conscious about posture is when your mom told you to sit up straight at the table, or she told you to stand up straight when you were meeting somebody for the first time. So how did I get interested in posture? I'm an athletic trainer, and if you're not familiar with athletic training, I'm a healthcare provider, and I deal primarily with musculoskeletal injuries. When I was treating patients, I wasn't getting the resolution that I wanted to get. So very early in my career, I realized that this cornerstone of posture, this cornerstone of where movement comes from, wasn't being considered. And I quickly thought about Albert Einstein and his quote or definition about insanity. And if I kept doing the same thing over and over again with my patients and hoping for a different result, I would go insane. And so would my patients, and my patients would be dissatisfied. And as much as I liked seeing them time and time again, I really wanted them to go away. And I wanted them to go away and be happy and be pain-free. I was chasing pain. I wasn't finding the problem. I wasn't solving the problem. I was chasing their pain. So I quickly became aware that I had to find out, what did the proper posture look like? What was it ideal? And I'll tell you right now, I work on a campus with about 3,000 people. And 2 people out of 3,000 came to mind of who I could share with ideal posture. One said, no way. The other said, where's this going? And I lied. So she volunteered. So when you look at posture, and if you look at posture from the anterior view, there are certain things I look for. I want to make sure that the shoulders are parallel to the floor. I want to make sure the hips are parallel to the floor. And even with the candidate that volunteered, I actually could see some deficits in one shoulder being dropped about 1 inch in comparison to the other. I looked into that and tried to hypothesize why, but I had bigger fish to fry that day. I also wanted to make sure that I had a straight alignment from the forehead all the way through the sternum to the pubis down to the floor. I also look at my patients to make sure their knees aren't going in or out. She has a fairly ideal posture. This is my one big view I like to see. I look at the lateral view. From my lateral view, I can see quite a few things. I want to make sure that that ear is lined up with that shoulder. I have to make sure the shoulder isn't forward because the head looks okay then. I want to make sure that my ear and my shoulder are in good alignment, and then my shoulder's in good alignment with my hip's in good alignment with my knee, and then my knee's in good alignment with my ankle. The other things I look for are essential. I look for curvatures of the spine. When I look at the curvatures of the spine, I'll look at the cervical, the neck area, and I want to see a nice, soft anterior curvature. That allows the individual to absorb stresses and forces with every footstep they take. Individuals who have had car accidents and they have muscle tightness, they end up with a very, very flat, straight cervical spine. And every time they step, they can feel it in their neck. There's a jarring sensation. As I look down their back, I want to see a nice curvature spine in their lumbar, their low back. This also absorbs those stresses. They're like springs in your car, shock absorbers in your car. Without them, we have very rigid, jarring, stopping. With them, we can absorb these forces. So that's what I look at when I'm looking at a patient from the lateral view. From the posterior view, I'm looking at a lot of the same things that I look at from the anterior view. I look at their shoulders being in equal distance to one another, their hips being nice and even, making sure their feet are parallel to one another, and making sure that their gluteal folds are even on the right and left side, which is, unfortunately to show you, but right here. Because that can tell me a lot about their pelvis, and the pelvis and the core are really key and essential for someone's posture. I also think about forces. What are they going to be doing? What do I need them to return to? So I look at two forces. I look at gravitational forces. I think you're going to be surprised to know that when we have gravitational forces that are constantly pushing down on us, keeping us on Earth, keeping us grounded, we have about 8% of our body weight that is being compressed at the cervical region. For a 150-pound person, not me, but for a 150-pound person, that's 12 pounds of pressure on the cervical region alone from ideal position. As we work our way down, right about the sternal area, we have about 30% of our weight. And right at our lower lumbar, the last part where we have that unilateral force, 50 pounds of pressure. Again, for that 150-pound person, that's 75 pounds of pressure on that one lumbar vertebrae before it spreads out into that bilateral stance position. As we work our way down to our feet, we have a little bit more distribution between the right and left. When we look at those ground reaction forces, the other force that we deal with on a constant basis, with every single step I take with a walking gait, I have about 1.5 to 2 times my body weight just walking. The average individual ambulates at about 100 to 80 steps per minute. That's a lot of pressure just walking. So now we'll add jogging, we'll add running, we'll add squatting, we'll add stair climbing, and we can be anywhere between 4 to 6 times our body weight. Notice I haven't jumped yet. Jumping is even more than that. So we have a lot of forces being distributed up through our feet on a daily basis. What do these two forces do? They compress us. I got in the car, and I get in the car every morning, and I take my rearview mirror and I set it because I have to back out of my garage. Yes, I actually park in my garage. So I back out and I go to work, and about 8 to 10 hours later, I leave. I get in my car, I look in my rearview mirror because I'm going to back out. I can't see. Who moved my mirror? So I move my mirror, I readjust it. What happened during the day? I got compressed. And then I got depressed. Because I realized I'm 50. At 40, I was 4/10 of an inch taller than I was at 50. And for every decade after 40, we will lose approximately 4/10 of an inch. Do we have to? Not necessarily. We might be able to avoid some of those things. But we do, in fact, shrink. Some of our shrinkage is from our intervertebral discs. About 20% of our height comes from those fluid-filled shock absorbers. And they get compressed over time. They get degenerative over time. And unfortunately, so do our bones. If we don't have good bone health, we start to have some osteoporotic changes, especially in the females. And we do start to see this compression. Spine health is essential. And hopefully, you'll get an idea of the forces that we're dealing with on a day-to-day basis. What do I see more common than everything else? What I see is forward head positioning. With this forward head positioning, remember that 8% of the body weight that is on your neck and compressing your cervical? Well, let's say you're just an inch forward of that ideal position. We have just added 10 pounds of pressure. So we have 12 pounds for a 150-pound person, plus that 10, 22 pounds of pressure is now on my cervical region. If I'm 2 inches forward, 32 pounds of pressure. I don't know about you, but that is a lot of stress and a lot of force on the back of our neck. With this, sometimes we see that anterior shoulder positioning. That anterior shoulder position, we have 2 tendons, we have a bursa that sit underneath this bone here. When we are anterior shoulder, we limit the place that has to be. When we increase the space, we're in good positioning. So I had to have surgery on my shoulder about 25 years ago. Before I was a corrective exercise specialist, I was like this. I had pain. Surgeon said, you don't have enough room. Went in, made more room. You know what makes more room? This. I could have corrected myself, but I didn't know yet that I could do that. These two things are sometimes referred to as upper cross syndrome, and we see it a lot in the general population today. With upper cross syndrome, we have this tight pectoral area here, and we have a tight upper trap back in here. Then we have weaknesses or inhibited muscles. We have inhibited anterior neck flexors, and we have inhibited rhomboids and serratus anteriors, the muscles that keep our scapulas against our thoracic cavity. And when that happens, we get this pulling and this weakness, and we end up with this anterior positioning. As we work our way down, it's not just neck, it's the low back as well. Low back, according to the World Health Organization, is one of the leading causes of lost work time. There's about 149 million workdays lost on average annually in the United States alone. This costs the American economy $100 to $200 billion a year. And if I told you right now, you had an 80% chance of winning the lottery, would you play? Yes, I bet you would. But if I said you had an 80% chance of having low back pain during your lifetime, would you do something about it? Unfortunately, a lot of people don't do preventative exercises, preventing the back pain from happening in the first place. Another thing we can see with low back pain is excessive weight. When we have weight, especially anterior weight, we will get this rotation that's even emphasized more. 1 pound of excessive weight is equal to 4 pounds of additional pressure on our knees. So just being 10 pounds overweight means that we are adding an additional 40 pounds of pressure on our knees on a day-to-day basis. Our knees were not made to be able to absorb that kind of force. It's amazing what happens on a day-to-day basis, the summation of forces that we actually never think about. This lower cross syndrome, you get really tight hip flexors because we're in this position a lot. We get really tight erector spinae, low back muscles. And we have inhibited abdominal muscles, and we also have inhibited glutes. Those things in conjunction lead to lower back pathology. The other thing that leads to lower back pathology, I'm really sorry to tell you, it's what you're doing right now. It's sitting. With the sitting position, global studies have shown that on average, Americans sit for anywhere between 8 and 15 hours a day. Think about it for a minute. If you're at work and you have a seated job, that's 8 hours of sitting just right there. If you drove in and drove back and you live a little distance away, that could be another hour. Let's say you're eating dinner and you're sitting. Could be another half an hour to an hour if you go out. You're watching TV. You're working from home. Calculate how many hours a day you sit. It's probably a good amount. I've encouraged individuals to get standing desks where I work. HR wasn't happy with me, but we have happier workers. And we shouldn't go from sitting 8 hours to standing 8 hours. That's not healthy either. What's ideal is kind of splitting that time. If we can get to 4 hours standing and 4 hours sitting during an 8-hour day, that would be ideal. That would be really good. So, posture, it's the foundation of our life. It is the stability of our life. And when your mother told you to stand up or sit up, she wasn't thinking about, oh, wow, she's going to have 10 pounds of extra pressure on her neck. Or she's going to end up with upper or lower cross syndrome, unless I was your mother. She was thinking about how you presented yourself to the world. How you presented yourself in a confident and optimistic way. So we need to make sure that posture is conscious, as everything else in life. We shouldn't take it for granted, which sometimes we do. We need to have a conscious awareness of the resources and the gifts and the abilities and passion we have been given to survive in this life and be successful. We should also be aware of the emotional weight we sometimes carry. That emotional weight can really cause and make us feel unable to move forward, unflexible, inability to move forward, and stops our overall progression in life. And just a small positive changes in your posture can provide numerous benefits to your physical body, an overall sense of well-being. Sometimes we just need one small positive change in our lives to find peace and contentment. So posture will get you through life, both literally and figuratively. And Mom was right. Stand up tall, stand up proud, and move forward in life in a positive way. Thank you.